Welcome back, everybody, to High and Tight, part of the Sports Wars YouTube channel, part of geeksandgamers.com. I'm your host, Brandon Andreessen. And before we get going today, if you like what you see and you like the content we're providing you, make sure to click down on the subscribe button so you can keep up with all the videos we release, and let us know what you think in the comments section. Big week, trade deadline week. So before we get going, I'm going to create another video tomorrow doing a trade deadline recap. So we're not trying to rush everything today, trying to keep it all compressed, give you guys an extra video. Instead of that today, we're going to jump in a different thing. This past weekend, Sean Newcomb was in the middle of throwing a no-hitter, which should have been one of the biggest moments in his life. He gave up the no-hitter with 2 strikes and 2 outs in the 9th inning to Chris Taylor. Big moment for the Braves, and who are in the NL East in an actual title race right now. But the big thing everybody was talking about were a bunch of old tweets that were uncovered from Sean Newcomb's Twitter account from 2011 and 2012. Later on that same day, the exact same thing happened to Trey Turner of the Washington Nationals. A lot of things have been said about this, including a lot of people coming to the ball players' defense saying, oh, they were young, they shouldn't have said this, but they can't be held against them. Look. We're in an era where social media is everywhere, and we as people have to be cognizant and aware of it. There are apps that if you really think you're concerned about what you might have said on Twitter when you were younger, there are literally apps that will delete your tweets for you up until a certain point. It's a function of society nowadays. We're living in an era where everything is 24/7. Everything is at your fingertips, and nothing is nuanced anymore. Nothing is said in jest. There's no context. Everybody says things that they might regret from when they were younger. They do things, they say things. The difference is back in the day, you said something, it was out in the ether, said to your friends or whatever, and it's gone, it's over. It takes getting older and getting more mature to maybe find different cultures and different types of people. Maybe a lot of these people were born in, farmland in the suburbs and rural areas where they don't they don't see a lot of diversity. They don't meet people from the LGBTQ community. And so they don't have that mindset. They don't have that purview. They can't see things from other sets of eyes. They don't know that life experience. And so they say stupid things. Lord knows I've done and said stupid things in my life. I used to go to high school dressed in a Hawaiian shirt with a chain wallet. Thank God there's no picture proof of that happening. The problem is we as a society are like a bell, and most of us exist at the top of the bell. But you know what you hear are the extreme ends on the bottom of the bell. That's where the bell makes its noise. That's the thing you hear the loudest. So from both ends, you hear the people that are saying, kick them out of baseball. Oh, they don't deserve to be there anymore at the one end. And the other end going, oh, this is liberal culture. It's a bunch of snowflakes. They can't handle things like this. This is all we're hearing. When in reality, the topic is much more in the middle because it's much more pervasive than I think anybody gives it credit for. Because of Twitter, because of Facebook, hell, even going back as far as MySpace, there are things out there that people have said that maybe they regret, but maybe after 7 or 8 years, they don't remember saying it. That doesn't excuse the behavior at all. If they said it and they don't believe that anymore, then they have to be forward about that, and they have to come forward about that, and they have to deal with their teammates, and they have to reckon with their teammates, and they have to be a part of a very diverse clubhouse on a day-to-day basis, where they have to live with stuff like that. There aren't as many guys like, I believe, Steve Clevenger, who basically got booted from baseball for his outward racism, or guys like Bud Norris, who's a bully and was outed as such by the Cardinals earlier this summer. It's not a black and white issue. What they said was very wrong, but to cast the stones on it doesn't give a lot of credence, because I think people who say they've never said or done anything regrettable are liars. Just throwing it out there. You have to live and you have to learn from your experiences in life. And when you're 17 or 18 years old, and maybe sometimes for all of us, it's hard to look back at what we were like back then. We were brash, we were dumb, we were just trying to figure out the world, and we don't have as much life experience as we do. I can tell you at 34, I have a much different life experience than I had when I was 17, 18 years old. I went to a high school. It was an all-white high school. We were in rural Illinois. We didn't have there was no diversity. There was nothing. Our idea of, ethnic food was Taco Bell. We didn't have all that. But as I got older, I met a much more diverse group of people, and you round yourself out as a human being better that way. And I, like myself, I grew into the person I'd become because of those life experiences, a lot of which I experienced after I graduated high school, after I got older. And I think that's the same thing with a lot of us. And I think sometimes we don't want to recognize that feeling and recognize that fact because that somehow casts shadow on what we did and how we felt at some point in our lives. That's not to say that these guys aren't complete idiots because like I said, you can delete your Twitter account. You can, you're supposed to have managers and agents that are supposed to be taking care of this stuff for you and keeping the stuff clean for you. So in that sense, it's on them. They take responsibility for A, having said it, but B, not being smart enough to have the common sense to go back through and maybe get rid of it. Just throwing that out there. It's definitely something you can do. It's definitely possible. But the people calling for these guys to be suspended and be, they don't deserve to be in a major league clubhouse, pump the brakes. The people that are saying that, these are snowflakes, this is snowflake culture, this is SJW culture. SJW culture is the stupidest thing ever anyone can ever say. You're fighting for equal rights. You're fighting for equal rights among everyone. That's supposed to be a bad thing. But people say SJW culture like it's a derogative in a derogative nature. It's whatever. It's not either of those things, to be honest with you. It's not SJW. It's not kick them out of baseball. It's neither of those things. What we need to exist more in is shades of gray, top of the bell, and we need to see things from both sides a little bit more. Moving on. Sorry for that rant, guys. It's been burning at me for a couple of days now. Had to get it out. Thank you, Sports Wars, for letting me bitch about that. Let's jump into our power rankings for the week because we've had a big mix-up in the top five. Number one this week, the Boston Red Sox. They have the best record in baseball now, and they seem to be gaining momentum. They just traded for Ian Kinsler to add second base depth now that Dustin Pedroia is injured. No real timetable on when he's going to be back yet. So Ian Kinsler has already got a 2.5 WAR this year, is going to step in and provide great depth for a Red Sox team that really doesn't have a lot of weaknesses at this point. You can look and maybe pick points, maybe an extra outfielder or something, but in reality, the Red Sox seem as equipped to make a World Series run as any team in baseball. And right on their heels is number two, the New York Yankees. The Yankees have been basically working around the edges, bringing in, veteran pitcher like J.A. Happ. They're not messing with the high end of their farm system. They traded Tyler Austin yesterday. Tyler Austin is a former top pick who has fallen off, showed no consistency in the majors, and has taken that inconsistency back down to the minors. So he seems like a perfect, change of scenery candidate, but also somebody that's easily able to get rid of, to help on the fringes of their team. It's going to be interesting. We're right now, as I'm taping this, 3.5 hours from the trade deadline. I'm willing to bet money both the Red Sox and the Yankees may have at least one more move in their chamber before this day is over, and we will go over any of those deals tomorrow. Falling from 1 to 3 in the rankings, the Houston Astros. I've seen this happen with a lot of teams. I think we all have. A team that gets out and just is absolutely rolling all summer, and then they just get bored. And they're getting bored, and they're, getting maybe a little bit sloppy. Just they aren't taking things as seriously. They're relaxing. They're nursing injuries. They're not going to give it 100% because they know they have to be ready come October. I don't think there's any concern about the Astros missing the playoffs, obviously. I still believe they're probably the best team in baseball, but at the same time, they've lost 7 of 10 games, and they just traded for Roberto Ozuna, who's coming off a 75-game suspension for beating the unholy hell out of a woman. but they still have the best Pythagorean record in Major League Baseball. They're just playing a little bit below their luck right now. And as a pitching staff, they've still given up the fewest runs in baseball. So I think they're back on top. But the reason that they should be scared at least a little bit are the numbers 4 and 5 teams in my rankings this week, with apologies to the Indians and the Cubs falling off. Number 4, the Seattle Mariners. They've won 5 in a row over the Astros now, and they've crept into within 3 games of first place in a division that looked over in June. They had a brilliant start last night by James Paxton over the Athletics. They won 2-0. The offense hasn't been there all season. The pitching staff hasn't been there all season. But it seems like one thing is always working just enough for them to win ball games. And they seem like a team that's going to do anything necessary to get the job done. They kind of like other teams right now, they've been doing trades around the fringes, not trying to mess with their core, just trying to work on things on the outside in. Both the run towards the top right now, and they can see the playoffs. It's right there. That second wild card spot's there. Even the division's not out of range. It's 3 games. It's not the end of the world. They can make that up. You have to wonder if trade magician Jerry Dipoto is going to try and make a big move today to shore up the bullpen or the pitching staff. Could they be a team that makes a run at one of the top-end starters? They very well could be. They don't have the best minor league system ever, but there are pieces there that teams might be interested in. If they could, the Mariners, it wouldn't be shocking if they could pull a number 3 starter sometime by mid-afternoon here. And number 5, got to be the most impressive team in baseball, guys. The Oakland Athletics. No one thought this. No one thought they were going to do this. They are doing what they can to make this team work, both on and off the field. It was announced yesterday that they're getting rid of their season ticket program. They're not even going to have season tickets anymore at the stadium. Instead, they're setting up an incentive program where you can buy the cheapest seats for a season. And then you can just pay if you want to sit at a better seat. You can just pay to upgrade at the door when you come in. It's just an incentive, a tier-based program, and it starts at $240. That's 81 games for $240. That's $3 a ticket. At Wrigley Field, I'm not even allowed to make eye contact with a beer vendor for $3. So that's really impressive. It's great for the Athletics, great for their fans to get the fans out there for cheap seats. Just go out and see a Major League ball game for $3. You can't do that. So good on them for trying to put asses in the seats, getting rid of an archaic program like the season ticket program. I hope it works for them, and I hope other teams adopt it in Major League Baseball and other sports, in fact. On the field, this team is like a Rube Goldberg device. None of these parts seem to fit, but everything just kind of seems to work in order. Edwin Jackson's on his 15th Major League Baseball team, and he picked up the win last night. He's just like he exists. He's going to bury all of us, and he's still going to be doing it in some expansion team, like when Las Vegas or Charlotte or Montreal gets an expansion team. He's going to be on that team, and we're all going to be elderly on walkers, and he's still going to be throwing a 91-mile-per-hour changeup somehow. He's magic, basically. They have the 5th best record in the American League, which is a little bit misleading because if they were in the National League, they'd have the 2nd best record in the National League behind the Cubs, and they'd only be the only difference is in number of losses the two teams have. It's made more impressive by the fact that they're doing this in the AL West, in which 75% of their in-division games are against teams that are 500 or better. Only the Texas Rangers have a below 500 record in the AL West. This is not a weak division. In fact, from top to bottom, it's probably the toughest division in baseball right now. And to see a team like the Athletics just going out there, guns blazing, just going for it every day, playing like it's every game like it's a wild card game, playing game, that warms my heart to watch a team just go for it. To hell with everything else. Every day, go out there, try to win. The big question is, can the Athletics make a big move at the trade deadline? Billy Beane is a general manager that favors the bold. He's made big moves in the past. He's traded for John Lester. He's traded for Jeff Samardzija in the same season. Is he the guy that makes the Godfather offer to the Nationals to try and get Bryce Harper, or is willing to part with a huge amount of his farm system to try and get Syndergaard or DeGrom from the Mets? The Athletics have been burned before on trades like this, But I'll tell you, when the A's are good and the Coliseum is bumping, there's no better place to be in baseball. So I'm lighting my sacrificial candle for Billy Beane. I'm hoping that they go out and pull something huge today, because if it's not a Chicago team, I root for the Oakland teams. The A's have been my AL team forever. I want to see them. I want to see them succeed because, it doesn't just have to be Oakland doesn't have to be just a basketball town. Come on, let's get baseball back in it for fucking Cali. Bottom 5, who cares? We're to say the entire AL Central that isn't named the Cleveland Indians, and let's go with the Orioles because the Orioles are fucking awful. With apologies to the Texas Rangers and the Mets this week, maybe you guys will be there next week. But the AL Central is garbage, quite possibly one of the worst divisions in Major League history. I can't wait to see how that one plays out because, there are going to be an army of apologists trying to make excuses for why the Twins are supposed to be good and why they're selling assets off as quickly as they can, why the Tigers can't even sell assets off because they're so old and overpriced. Why the Royals are a dumpster fire and shall they stay that way forever. The only team that's supposed to be doing what they're doing are the White Sox, and it could be argued that the White Sox are actually playing too well right now. So I wouldn't be shocked if we see a few more trades out of general manager Rick Hahn before the trade deadline today. So like I said, I will be back tomorrow. We'll do a full trade deadline recap. I'll try and get you guys as much information as possible, pack it in for you. So check me out again tomorrow for that. That's all for me this week. If you want more of me, check me over on the Geeks and Gamers iTunes page or Podbean page, where you can check out our weekly Pro Wrestling Nation podcast. You can also check out my weekly stand-up comedy podcast at soundcloud.com/Tim and Brandon Show, and my weekly football gambling article over at footballabsurdity.com. Search for in the byline for 30-team parlay. And if you like what we do here on Geeks and Gamers, do us a favor, go to patreon.com/Geeks and Gamers and donate. We are creating tons of exclusive content just for Patreon subscribers that you do not want to miss. Check it out. All right, guys, until tomorrow, I'm Brandon Dreesen. Later.